Hey there guys, Samuel here. I've been meaning to do this for a while, but I've been waiting to make sure that I got my complete setup all the way around done, and I think I've got it. So, I'm wanting to share with you guys what my podcasting setup is, because, well, everyone shares their podcasting setup at some point. So I figured it was my turn now that I think I've got everything in place. So, here we go. Okay, so as you guys may or may not know, I actually live in... Yes, ignore the dog chewing the thing right there. As you guys know, I may or may not have mentioned that I actually live inside my studio. I don't have a separate room for it. That means that this room has to be able to transform, in a sense, and be both a studio and a setup at the same time. Now, the way I pull this off is that, and I'm showing the setup that I do whenever I have multiple people on the podcast, by the way. I'm not showing the setup normally, but it's very simple. I wanted to show at least how I do multiple microphones and everything like that. So, normally as I kick a dog toy out of the way, I usually have one of the mics here, which this mic does fold up and go underneath my bed, but I'll show you that later. But I will line the microphones across this way towards the door and have seats but in front of them. That way, obviously, they can actually sit down. Now, whenever I do have a multiple setup, a lot of times I will use this TV right here to put all of these show notes and stories. That way, everyone can read them at the same time and not have to have laptops all opened up. The way I do that, I guess, is the first thing I want to show you guys. And I'm kind of proud of this setup. Is that underneath, you'll see that white cable there. There's actually another cable that's black, but you probably won't be able to see that. There's actually two other black cables that run from my computer, which I'll get to now. Gotta get in my little setup. That way you'll see things from my perspective. Okay. There are two cables, one that runs into the back, if I'll move my... There's a display cable down there, see? And it connects to the back of my computer. That means that I can pull up the show notes, stories, and everything on my laptop here and actually have them show up on the screen behind me, the television screen. That way, everyone will get a look at everything. Now, as for equipment and things like that, well, I obviously use the laptop, but here's my Roland R-05 that I have been ranting about, and you guys, especially you all about sound listeners, will be able to see or hear rather, the difference in sound. But the things I've had with me from the start, I used to actually use this headset that I happen to have in this shelf whenever I first started, but that's the thing. I wanted to get my content out rather than quality. And then I upgraded to this little sucker. If I don't fall over here. That's the difficulty with filming and everything at the same time. Anyway, so it's a Eurorack UB1202 from Behringer. It's not that expensive, actually. I can't remember off the top of my head, but this little sucker does me well. It's got 4 mic inputs, and you can see that I've got the farthest one over here mic'd up because I'm actually got this ready for an all-about sound recording that I'm going to do later with Dad. So he's always this channel, and several other people are this channel too. But I always keep them separated by person. That way, no matter what, everything will be set up properly. I won't go into the settings on the board because that's something that, you know, it's going to be from person to person. However, I will say that in order to run my microphones properly, I have this preamp right here. It's a tube preamp. And we've gone over this before, but the setup is that I run the microphones through the preamp, and then I run them into the effects channel in the board. And that allows me to control it from the effects knobs here to show how much effect I want that to have. Like I said, you're going to have to experiment, obviously, to figure out your proper settings, but I'm just going over my equipment. Now, as for getting the music for the Triple M's on Samcast and for getting the main theme tunes, I turn around here in my seat and see, I have my microphone there, and I will adjust it to get closer to myself, obviously, but this is just the sedentary position now. But I have an app on my iPad to deal with that, and apologies for the glare from the light. But this, if I can, okay, like I said, there's a bit of a glare, but you can still read it properly. I've got all of the intros inside of this app, and I'm actually planning on doing an app review of this separately, but the basis is that I can then touch it and run it through the system, and it actually has an automatic fader button, so I can fade it in, or fade it out rather, and fade it back in. So I do all of my, since I got the Roland anyway, I do all of my recordings live to the thing without any specialized editing involved. I do a little bit of editing on the computer, but that's more for podcast flow rather than equipment. So I do use my iPad. Now, I also have this blank spot on my desk. Whenever I actually do the Triple M's, I use the iPad as well, but I have it propped up, which I guess I can do one-handed. Let's try this. Using the smart cover here. And then grab it. This is more difficult one-handed than I thought. Hold on a second. There. Took you guys on a trip. And then I will use the music app on here. I've got it on podcast right now, obviously. But then I will go to the Triple M playlist that I've created. And there's you guys a sneak peek of what I'm actually doing next week. But I will actually use that and play it through there and then control it that way. That way I will see the whole list, which they've updated this. I actually like it a bit better, but it will show the entire list and everything I'm going to be dealing with, including making my clever little intros to the music and everything. So my main things I use are my iPad, my preamp, my laptop, my Roland, and of course a mixer to bring everything into the Roland. Now afterwards, you actually, which I won't try to take it out or anything, but I will at least open up the back and show you guys that there is an SD card. It comes with a 2 gig SD card, by the way, which is always sweet. But after that, I will then take it and put it, if I can set my iPad over here, into, say I've got a slot on the side of my laptop for an SD card. That's almost standard for laptops nowadays. But with that, it means that I can easily get that file and run it through all the proper encoders. I do the Cliff Ravenscraft thing of using the Fraunhofer encoder and everything like that. And I've got the lamp on, by the way, because the only gripe with the Roland is that it is not backlit completely. It'll be backlit for, I think, the top's 30 seconds, and then it will all of a sudden be not backlit. It's kind of a power saver thing. I have a feeling if I had an AC adapter, it would just stay backlit, but as a result, I use just a pair of rechargeable batteries I have. That way I don't have to keep buying batteries for the dang thing. I also use the Roland for Samuel's Thoughts, by the way, whenever I'm walking. That's the recorder that I take with me with a windscreen on top of it, and it gives me pretty good sound just from that. So yeah, if there's one piece of equipment that I'd say if someone's starting podcasting, I would definitely go for the Roland. It's about $200, but you will never have to upgrade that sucker afterwards, I wouldn't think. So it's a sweet piece of equipment, but I'll probably talk more about that whenever we get to recording on All About Sound for those of you that listen to that. But I just wanted to share my setup and give you some ideas, on what kind of setup you may want to have on your studio. And like I said, I have had to be a bit creative because I live in this room. This room isn't exactly that big. It's big enough for one person at least. But I still have to work around. And by the way, whenever I do this solo, I don't move my microphone. I actually have it beside my desk and right around the top of my laptop. So that's how I do it solo. But I wanted to show the full setup whenever I'm doing a proper Samcast with the Samcast crew, or every time I do it with All About Sound. But that's my podcast setup. I figured I'd just let you guys in on it. So, see you guys.